Have you ever wondered how other people plan their trips? In this episode, we'll share how we planned our Irish road trip, and we'll give you tips, tools, and tricks to plan your own great adventure.
Flight travel will be the biggest cost, and there are several ways to set a preliminary budget. Compare carriers from your nearest airport to Ireland. Some may be direct, while others will not. Choose a city that you want to fly into. Dublin, Shannon, I believe Cork. Check for extra fees, carry-on requirements, check bags, etc. The season that you travel also affects the price. Look at the shoulder season. Prices are generally lower, and typically there are fewer tourists. The weather, well, it is what it is, and you just be prepared for it. Take the right clothing.
You can search online for flights for general prices on sites like Google Flights or Skyscanner. There's also a site if you're going to be taking a train or a ferry or a bus, and it's called Omeo. You can go online and check those. You can enter in the dates that you think you want to travel and the airport, and that will give you some idea of about what it will cost that time of year, just so you can get a general idea for your budget. You can compare the rates in and out of different airports because it might vary a little bit, and also they'll have graphs and charts that you can look and see if you shift your vacation a little bit one way or another by just a couple days. It can make a big difference in the price that you pay.
It does.
You also want to take into account the fact that some of the flights that they quote prices on have a requirement of staying a certain number of days. So you can only get that rate if you're staying 7 days or 10 days or 14 days. So be sure you pay attention to that. Also, take a look at your work schedule and your personal schedule before you start making plans. Goals for your trip. At this point, it's time to look at the goals for your trip. And speaking of goals, our goals for this channel are on their way up. Thank you so much to those of you who subscribed after our plea in the last video. We'd like to welcome our new subscribers, and if you're a viewer who hasn't subscribed yet, we'd love for you to join us. We would really appreciate it. It helps us continue to bring you this content. So, on to the goals for your trip. What type of trip do you want to take? Do you want something that's relaxing, lounging around on the beach? Or do you want something that's more active outdoors? Do you want to do hiking and mountain climbing, play golf? Do you like the city hustle and bustle of Dublin? The museums, the pubs, the restaurants?
Your goal may be to see historic sites or natural wonders across Ireland. Try to come up with a plan if that's what you want to see. There are castles everywhere, there are ruins everywhere, so just make sure that you do a little research and figure out, or what is your main goal when you go there to see historic sites or natural wonders. Maybe one of the goals of your vacation is to get out and meet people. Maybe experience the local flair of a smaller town or a village. There are lots of opportunities for that as well.
Do you want to stay in one place, or do you want to move around? There are people who only go to Dublin. That wouldn't be me, but there are people who do that. And if that's you, you do you.
That's all you can say.
Inspiration and negotiation. Now this is the fun part. This is where you do the research and you look at the location, the prices, the days and hours of things. When we were planning our trip, we took about 18 months to plan our trip, I think. And a couple nights a week at least, we would come home from work and sit on the back screen porch with our guidebooks and our map and a cocktail and start planning our trip.
And a laptop.
And a laptop. Or our cell phone or a pad.
Right.
To us, that was one of the most enjoyable parts, was dreaming about what could we do and planning.
So we referred to numerous guidebooks. We got them at the bookstore, the library, we borrowed them from friends, and hopefully those friends have actually been to Ireland, so we questioned them. Whatever resources we could find.
There are also a lot of resources online. Google Ireland travel and you will find a ton of stuff. You'll find blogs, you'll find vlogs. Go on YouTube and search Ireland travel or search a particular thing you're looking for. TripAdvisor, top 10 sites in Ireland, will tell you the things. And as you get online, you'll go, as we say, down the rabbit hole, and you'll find lesser and lesser known things, but you'll find some fabulous things that maybe you haven't heard of before. One of my favorite resources is Pinterest. And if you've never done Pinterest, I would encourage you to get on there. It's an online bulletin board system. You can see what other people have posted to their bulletin boards. You can make your own bulletin board. It's a great resource. If you haven't tried it, I would encourage you. It's free, it's easy to do. Give it a try.
So, do you have any bucket list items if and when you get to go to Ireland? Well, ours were a stay in a hotel castle and a round of links golf. I can't believe Karen chose links golf, but we negotiated.
Liar.
We negotiated.
It is good to pick a couple of bucket list items. What are some really big ticket items that you might never get the chance to do again? That's what we did, and we did negotiate, and you'll see later how we managed to work that into our schedule, and it was about location and timing, but we did manage to make it work. Be sure that you compare independent travel that you plan on your own to group tours or some of the other options that companies out there have.
So how will you see Ireland? Maybe a group motor coach or in a smaller van tour, a hired driver perhaps, independent travel where you can option for a fixed itinerary or a choose your own alternative, which is more of what we did. Look at the pluses and minuses of each. Some may work for you, some may not. How much effort or planning do you want to put into this trip? Would you rather have somebody do more of it for you?
When we looked at the options, a group tour was a little restrictive to us.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No.
It wasn't for us, but that's not to say that it's not for you. Especially if you're traveling on your own, you might like being with other people and getting to do different things. We wanted a little more freedom than that. If you want a guided tour with a group, go for it. Our decision, however, was to do kind of a hybrid of them. We did a self-driving independent tour through CIE Travel, and CIE Travel is actually owned by the Irish government. They do a number of different options. We were very pleased with them, but there are other companies out there. We purchased a package through a travel agent in the US, although you can book directly with CIE Tours. There were some advantages to using a travel agent for it, but included in the package that we purchased from CIE were our flights, our accommodations, which we got to choose from several options in each city that we were staying in or each town that we were staying in. It included our rental car, the insurance both on our travel and on our car. We had a hot breakfast every morning, and we could add on sightseeing tickets to different places if we chose. So it was a good option for us. One of the advantages, there was an 800 number. If you have an emergency, there's always someone you can call by going with a company like that, going with a tour package. By using a travel agent, one of the advantages, we were able to pay a deposit and then split our balance up into a couple of different payments, which spread it out over time.
And if you are planning the trip mostly on your own, it can be overwhelming. Going with CIE Tours helped us narrow down some of our choices.
One of the advantages to having a package is it can be less expensive, but you need to do the math and see what would it cost you if you did all these things on your own. Is it cheaper? Can you make different choices? If not, maybe a package is a better deal for you. But that's something that you just have to do the math and do the research and figure out on your own. Disclaimer, we are not professional travel agents. We're just people who like to travel and like to see things, and you will learn as much from the mistakes we make, things we did that we shouldn't have done, or things that we didn't do that we should have done, as you will from the information that we give you here.
Rough itinerary and logistics. First of all, pull out a map, please.
Now, one of my nicknames for Chris is Geography Boy, because he does love his maps.
I could look at them far too long, so it's a bad habit. So we had 9 days on the ground in Ireland. At one point, I was trying to figure how big the island was and how much of it we could navigate in that time frame. I discovered that Ireland was the same size as our home state, which is Indiana. So I kind of looked at a map of Indiana and split that in half. It fit over the northern part of Ireland, and so we created our trip by splitting the island in half. It worked out very well for us, I think.
We might have been able to do the whole island in the 9 days, but it was not the kind of trip we wanted to do.
Good, come on kids, get your butts in the car, go.
Don't you want to look at the Grand Canyon?
Great.
We didn't want to be rushed. We wanted to take our time and enjoy the sights, meet the people, and have a little more relaxed experience.
That was the whole goal for us.
One of the things that enabled us to have more quality time on our trip was using what Chris refers to as hubs. And that's to stay in one town or one place at an accommodation for 2 or 3 nights at a time rather than moving every single day to a new location. That has some advantages. First of all, it saves time in packing and unpacking. If you're on a road trip, you're not loading and unloading the car every day. You become more familiar with the area and you feel a little more comfortable. You don't have to look every single day for where's a gas station, where's a grocery store, where's a place for breakfast or a restaurant. Also, one of the biggest advantages is it allows for flexibility in your schedule as far as sightseeing goes. When we were in Galway, we had planned on going to the Cliffs of Moher one day and then going to Connemara and seeing it the following day. As we were getting ready to leave, our host came running out and told us that it looked like the weather was going to be really bad at the Cliffs of Moher that day, that it was supposed to be foggy and rainy and we really wouldn't get to see it at its best. But in Connemara, it was going to be cloudy in the morning and then sunnier in the afternoon, and they recommended that we go there instead. Since we were staying a few days in one location, it enabled us to flip those 2 days and take advantage of the better weather. So we went to Connemara the first day and then went to the cliffs the following day and had a beautiful day at the Cliffs of Moher. We could see everything, no fog. It was great. And that's one of the advantages to staying at a hub for a couple of different nights.
Always trust the locals in reference to weather. They seem to know a lot better than us. So we chose Dublin, Galway, and Bushmills as our hubs, our home bases. Then we added 3 single night stays in Sligo, Letterkenny, and then back at the airport in Dublin. The single night stays were more like standalone days where I golfed, Karen hiked.
When we stayed at the castle.
At the airport, waiting to depart for home.
The next thing you need to look at is transportation between those hub towns or cities. If you're on a road trip like we were, you'll have a rental car, but you need to look at how much time it's going to take you to get from point A to point B. Now, if you're taking public transit, you may be taking a train or a bus. If you're tech savvy, you can use Google Maps, and I'll link a video down below if you haven't used Google Maps.
So for us, we thought it was rather genius, but maybe we just got lucky, I don't know. We did not rent our car the first day in Dublin. There was no need for it. We took a bus from the airport to our hotel, and then we walked around Dublin for 2 days and visited there. We knew that on the 3rd day we were leaving, so we rented our car on a Sunday morning, and it worked out well because there was not a lot of traffic. For our first day driving, I think it went rather well. There's no real need to drive in Dublin unless you're using Dublin as a hub that you want to go to, say, the Wicklow Mountains.
So if you are taking public transit, a ferry or bus or train, you can use that site Omeo to figure out how long it will take you to get from one hub city to another. Also, if you're driving, use your satellite navigation or Google Maps to find out how long you think it's going to take you to get from one place to another, because that's going to determine how much time you have to see sights in the different cities. Be sure you allow more time than you think it will take you, though, because you need a cushion there. It did take us longer to get from one place to another. It's not a direct route to most places in Ireland.
Usually not.
The roads are pretty curvy, they're narrow. Just keep that in mind. Allow a little extra time. And you can see more on that from our driving video. We'll post a link right up here for you. Now at last, it's time to narrow down your list of things you want to do and places you want to see.
Good luck.
Once you have a list, you need to rank in order the most important things to see and do. This is where that negotiation comes in. So with regards to negotiations, the way we did that, we took turns choosing what would go on the list. Number 1, I would choose. Number 2, he would choose. You notice how I got number 1.
And 3 and 5 and
But you got 2, 4, 6, and 8, okay? But that way, we both got to see, and a lot of them were on both our lists, quite frankly.
they were.
But that enabled us to get some of what I wanted to see, some of what he wanted to see, and it made for a very agreeable way to do it.
It was.
So when you're planning your itinerary, take the things that are at the top of your list and put those in first. Then the less important things you can plug in here and there where you have spaces. You can go into Google Maps and do a multi-location map if you're tech savvy. So you can mark on the map where all of the locations are that you want to see and see how they're grouped, and that will help you plan your itinerary. Now, if you're not particularly tech savvy, or if you just like doing it old school, like we did, you can put a map out either on the wall or, in our case, on the floor of our screen porch and crawl around on the floor with Post-it notes with the names of the sites and stick them on where the sites are. Then you can see where most of the Post-its are, and you can figure out what your hub cities should be and about how many days you're going to need in each place and what you can see in each of those areas. That way you're not backtracking, you're making really good use of your time. We also used a wipe-off board with a calendar on it. That way we could move things around, put our hotels once we get them on there. We can tell where we're going to be. Do we have time to see this, see that? And it was just a really convenient way to do it. Again, if you're tech savvy, you could also use a spreadsheet. If you aren't that tech savvy, or you just like seeing things up front and you erasing them and moving them around, a wipe-off board with a calendar is a great way to do it.
It is. I approve. So on our rough draft of our itinerary, we planned on 1 or 2 major things a day to do. We had alternate plans, and if we got rained out, that's something else we could do. So always try to have a backup plan. Don't over plan for one day. You'll be hurried unless you just want to try to cram as much into one day as you can. That's fine too. It just wasn't for us.
And that being said, we did have one day that we crammed quite a bit into. We don't always follow our own advice, I guess, is the thing. And we were really glad that we saw all of those things, even though that was a really rushed day. But I don't think we would have wanted to do that every day. So now that you have your rough itinerary, it's time to look at accommodations. But there are a lot of different accommodations in Ireland, so that will be where we pick up on our next episode. In the meantime, have a look at these videos that cover the day that we didn't follow our own advice and crammed too much in. And thanks for hitting the road with us.
See you next time.